RFK is proposing that people go live and work on farms, getting, he thinks, a good dose of physical labor, as well as growing organic food that they get to eat. Are these going to be the chain gangs? Or worse off, is this going to be if they're taking individuals that are from urban neighborhoods and all of a sudden you're back to the days of the Confederate? I think those are kind of extreme examples, but they're certainly an idea to think about.
I can see how people go, huh? Something has to be done.
BJ, I know you have a very unique perspective on this, not only being a fighter and dealing with high pressure situations constantly, but also running for an office. How do you look at this as an idea of an alternative type therapy for individuals that are struggling with mental health issues? Would this be something that you think would be encouraged?
You know what?
Hey, welcome to my podcast. This is Justin. I've been the owner and operator of different medical facilities across the country, dealing in men and women's health for the last 25 years. On the podcast here, I like to talk about all things health related for men and women, sports related, and get the unique perspective of a lot of my guests. Today, I have with me Ron. Again, thank you very much for joining me again.
Not a problem. Pleasure to be here.
Ron has been an instrumental trainer of champions, as he likes to say, for many, many years, training some of the world's greatest boxers and MMA fighters over the years. Normally we have Frank Mir with us here, but unfortunately he had to have emergency surgery. We wish him the best and speedy recovery.
Get well, Frank.
Now, and today I have a really special guest with me today. Not that Frank isn't always a nice ad, but BJ Penn, a legendary fighter. I've watched him for years. He's been in some of the craziest fights I've ever seen. For a lightweight fighter, I will say he was somebody that I always fought like a heavyweight. I was always a heavyweight individual, but I definitely never want to get in the ring with this guy. BJ, appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much. All the way from Hawaii. What is it? The Sunshine State? I'm going to sound like an idiot now. I don't think what that one is. But
the Aloha State.
The Aloha State. Yeah, that's right. Sunshine State's California, isn't it?
Sunshine State's California.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Hawaii.
Hawaii is always good weather. Even if it rains like 30 minutes later, it's good weather.
Yeah, he looks like he's enjoying himself out there right now.
Nice to see you, Coach. Respect.
Much respect to you, my friend.
So on today's podcast, I just want to cover a couple of things here. Today, we're going to be talking about RFK's farm idea of mental health. Are these farms going to be a good thing? Are they actually going to help? Or is this turning back the clock 200 years and going down a pathway I don't think we want to go to? BJ, I want to talk to you about the current state of UFC's lightweight division right now. What is your opinion on today's fighters? And what are the challenges transitioning from fighting into a normal life? You look like you've transitioned very well, but I want to talk to you about how you're staying active. So first and foremost, RFK, for those who haven't heard, he is wanting to help individuals that are dealing with mental health issues that are on a lot of different medications, and to eliminate those types of issues. He is proposing that people go live and work on farms, getting, he thinks, a good dose of physical labor, as well as growing organic food that they get to eat. Between the healthy foods and the physical labor will help eliminate a lot of mental health issues on individuals. I certainly have my opinion on the matter. I think that certainly a balanced diet, eating, physical activity can obviously be a good thing for anybody's well-being and state. I think it is a very bad approach to say it's a one-size-fits-all going to cure everybody. His idea of what mental health really is, or what medications are being prescribed, and what certainly brought somebody to that point in their life that's caused these issues, I think is a bigger picture to have to worry about looking at. Some of the comments and questions people are bringing up are these going to be the chain gangs? Or worse off, is this going to be if they're taking jewels that are from urban neighborhoods and all of a sudden you're back to, the days of the Confederates? I think those are kind of extreme examples, but they're certainly kind of a idea to think about. Ron, what are your thoughts?
I understand we need to do something about the mental health issues that we have in this country. I think it's been neglected since the 80s. And unfortunately, we have allowed the criminal justice system to handle mental health issues, which means once people are locked up, they lose benefits and they don't get the mental health stuff that they need. I don't know if farming them off. I believe in eating healthy. I believe that exercise is good for you, but I don't think you can force people into a farm where they have to grow their own food and exercise, and that's it. There has to be some other monitoring system. Do we have psychologists and psychiatrists there? And at the end of the day, who pays for this? Obviously, you're saying that the labor that they put in, they're not being paid for. I think in 1865 they fought a war for these kind of things.
Certainly.
So I can see how people go, huh? Something has to be done, but I don't know if farming people out. Obviously, there's some people who would benefit from maybe if they have less of issues, less trauma in their life. Maybe they were just going through something bad and they can go here and it helps them. But what do you do for people who've been sent off to war and the trauma that they suffered for years and years and maybe decades, going 3, 4, 5 tours, and you bring them back and you throw them on a farm?
Well, they have the PTSD and other things. It's as I said earlier, what's causing the trauma?
What causes the trauma? And now how does being on the farm, eating healthy, farming your own food, get the physical labor, how does that fix them? You have to have how does this fix me? And I don't see that. I see it's an idea that they're throwing out there, but what's the hypothesis that allows you to fix people that are there to make this worthwhile, and with all the other things that are going on?
BJ, I know you have a very unique perspective on this, not only being a fighter and dealing with high pressure situations constantly, but also running for an office, a governmental office. I'm sure it was one of those things where you have to look at it and say, okay, especially in Hawaii, I know there is a lot of, it's a beautiful place, but there's a lot of poverty there. It's a very expensive place to live, and there's a lot of unique situations with the people that are from Hawaii themselves. How do you look at this as an idea of an alternative type therapy for individuals that are struggling with mental health issues? And what would you say for your community to have something like this? Would this be something that you think would be encouraged?
I mean, you look at the people's, their success, you look at life. I mean, it comes down to one thing. Who's the best surfer? The one having the most fun. And that's what it's always going to come down to. I mean, you got to ask the guys what they want to do. Hey, what do you want to do? And then, but of course, the food is healthy. And like I was talking about earlier, the county farmers, I mean, you can just go down the road and count how many junk, crappy, worthless trees you can count until you count one tree with food. It's not an accident when Bob Marley says, with political strategy, they keep us hungry, I mean, it doesn't matter what was going on in your life. If, say some guy just drank his last of his beer, he's in a bad mood. He looks to the side, the best mango he's ever seen in his life. He grabs it, and just, there should be food everywhere. I mean, air from the earth, water from the well, food from the tree is from God. It's for everybody, Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's.
Okay.
But that's supposed to be just around like the air.
So you'd be in favor of having people?
Oh no, the farm. No, well, I think that they should do county farmers is what I think. But no, back to the mental health. If you don't want to do that, you're not going to get anywhere. Just like anything else, you love doing podcasts and you're having a great time, and that's what life's about. Because just like the coach was saying, he wants to. What's going to make them want to do it? And you gotta enjoy yourself. Anything you do, you gotta have fun. And I remember saying that one time, and somebody from the back yells from the back, just because you're having the most fun doesn't mean you're the best. And I go, you don't think the champion's having the most fun? It is what it is. But whenever they talk about the farming and stuff, like that you can't, like, if you're gonna build like a farmer division, farmers department, county farmers or something, those guys gotta be just nonstop. They gotta work just like the road work guys, just like the guys who like build the roads, build the bridges, those kind of guys. And all they do is grow food, because on the other side, you're gonna have people saying, we don't want the government to own all the food. I would always tell them, yeah, no, I understand. We'll get grants for you guys to do community gardens. The county farmer growing food for the people is for the couple that works 8 hours a day, comes home, watches their kids for 4 hours, goes to work the next day and does it again, Mm-hmm. And like this side, so the left would want the food lobby right here spinning, and that big billions of food lobby. And then the right, they'll buy anything you can imagine, a road, a bridge, anything you can possibly imagine. But once you put a piece of food in somebody's mouth, you're a communist, and it's just a bang for the buck. I mean, what can a government help with? A government can help with roads, Government can help with food, hospitals, police, fire, and then it's got to be on you after, right?
Absolutely. All right. So let's transition here a little bit here. Something I think it's a little more close to home for you. Ariel Hawani's comment to Islam about you being the greatest lightweight fighter of all time. What are your thoughts on getting recognized like that and Ariel labeling you the greatest lightweight fighter of all time?
It's always just a big honor, and for to even get recognized. And one of the most important things, I guess, for me that I personally is my favorite record is never getting into the steroids and stuff. And that's, I always say, hot dog. I did it all natural, hot dogs and beer. I was just all natural, and the only 155 and 170 pound champ still till today, actually, that record. But it's about having fun. Coach knows, right, Coach?
Absolutely.
You're out there.
It's definitely. You got to have fun if you want to be an elite athlete. I mean, you can have skills no matter what sport, but those who truly are passionate about their sport and having fun, those are the one that excels. And BJ at his best at 155 and 170, he was a treat to watch. And Islam's problem, obviously, when you start going to different eras, everybody's going to go my era, my era, my era. If you have that hypothetical matchup between Islam and BJ, he's never faced anybody like BJ. He's never faced anybody who hit hard, who had that kind of BJJ background that BJ has, and his balance.
True.
So throughout his years, not only as a great fighter, how many camps that people would call BJ out for to help them get prepared for their fight, because he offered something very unique inside that cage. And I don't think these guys today appreciate him enough. Those of us who transitioned from the early days of it to now understand it, but I don't think these young guys really understand what that guy is.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. BJ, as I said, years of watching your fights, always exciting, right? When you saw on the card, it was, BJ was going to be on the fight. You knew it was going to be a good fight. It was not going to just be a walk around, something that people were going to be lackluster about, which when you go back and watch some of his best fights, and saying, okay, is he the greatest lightweight of all time? But when you talk about some of the biggest fighters, when people talk about these things, I feel too often that BJ, your name is just left out of the great fighters overall. And so for people to say, hey, he was the greatest lightweight champion, a lightweight fighter of all time, why are they leaving him out of the overall pick when you hear people I've even heard people mention Tank Abbott. Right. And we're talking, this is before your time, BJ. Unfortunately, I'm old, so I remember Tank Abbott fighting, but it was a different era of the UFC. Again, as you're discussing era. But when people talk about Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture, they're always using the heavyweights guys or things. There are some middleweight, John St. Pierre,
Yeah.
But BJ, for him to be named the greatest lightweight fighter, but then when we're talking about it, why is so often you think some of the lightweight fighters, or in particular, BJ, not mentioned specifically?
Because you know what, I think sometimes we get caught up in wins and losses and not look at people in the prime of their careers. Or sometimes, BJ fought Machida.
Oh, that's right.
BJ, I think he weighed 193 pounds for that fight. But here's a lightweight fighter who's a guy who's fought at 155 and 175, taking a guy who's a future 205-pound champion. And he fought this guy.
Yeah.
Fighting fights like that. If he loses, then people go, oh, well, he's not that good. Do you realize the
weight difference? The
weight difference that he is not that big a guy, and he took this guy to the limit.
Yeah. Well, BJ, you've said you're all natural, right? And watching your fights, whether you win or lose, you won or lose, your fights were always, you could tell you were giving it your all at all times. I mean, you never slowed down. You were giving it at all times. When you hear people talking about that, I know you said it was a great honor when they named you, but do you ever feel like, hey, I was better than this guy, or I should have been talked about? Is that an ego thing for you, or does it not matter?
Yeah. I look at Islam, and I think, you want to be the best and just keep going. And that's what it's about. Just keep going and just stay in it. But it feels, it's tough. Yeah. I mean, it's tough in the sense, I can't believe I got here. I can't believe I got this far. And even just to be on this interview today.
Appreciate that. Well, I said, you had heart when you fought. You could tell you had heart, and you were in some truly legendary fights. I mean, truly legendary. When you think back on your career and you think of some of these legendary fights, is there one or two fights that you had that really stick in your mind and you say, you know what, this is something that I'll remember, or this particular fighter was one that was a truly really good or tough opponent? What are one of those for you?
You know what? My favorite fight of all time is the first time I won the title. It was against Matt Hughes. It was against Matt. But that was my third time fighting for the title. That's why when I see guys, because a lot of guys get to the title fight and then maybe they lose and who knows what happens. And I always remind them, I go, I didn't win my title to the third try. When I fought Gomi, and then my first try for the UFC belt was against Pulver. And then my second try was a draw against Uno in Atlantic City. But that's kind of when I came into my prime. I won the first round. He won the second and third. And then I came back and won the fourth and fifth. So I could start to, get more comfortable, more time. I think the fights that I blew through the guys, Din Thomas and Uno, I didn't learn anything. It blew me up. It got me exposure, but I wasn't ready, And that's why I tell the guys, I go, hey, this isn't most people go as far as they want. You'll see a guy, he'll win the fight just to get in the Ultimate Fighter house and just to be on the show, then he'll lose or whatever. You go as far as you want to go. And you really got to like fighting, because if you win, then you're going to fight a better guy. It's just going to keep going until you lose. But you can see some of the guys, even, you can just see it in them. Like you accomplish what you want to accomplish, and then that's it. That's kind of how I felt about Israel when he's been fighting lately. After he knocked out Pereira, and before the fight that he lost the belt, right after Pereira, I saw him hug Pereira, and it's his eyes was closed, because he accomplished his dream, And Pereira was standing there with the biggest eyes, just looking forward. He couldn't even. The fight was still in, right? And he just got wiped out on the last one. You can see when a fighter, say you're winning the whole fight, then you let the guy just take you down right in the last 30 seconds and choke you or something. It's because you don't want to do the camps anymore. It's because you don't want to get into it all. So you just, that's like saying I don't want to fight. And I mean, when you say like that, I don't want to fight, but it's also I don't want to do the camp. I don't want to fight. I don't want the mental.
So for you, would you say the biggest experience you got from whether you won or lost on these fights were the ones that actually drew out the longest, where you actually were able to react and gain something from the fight? Even if you lost, you gained something, rather than the fights where you won really quickly. You said you didn't really learn a whole bunch. Yeah,
but I mean, but you don't want to fight long too, right? Kind of. But yeah, and the quick fights, I learned. I mean, they're good, and then the longer ones I learned. But as you go down and you start getting into past 15, 20 fights, you got even past 10 fights, you want to start keeping them short as possible. And at any moment you could get caught. At any moment.
Well, yeah, I remember the Pacquiao fight. He was going crazy the third time he fought.
Manuel.
Yeah, and then he got caught with that punch and knocked him out, and everybody thought, what in the world's going on?
Because that was their fourth fight.
Was it the fourth? I thought it was the third.
That was their fourth fight. And so when Marquez and Pacquiao fought the first time, Marquez didn't understand that speed or power. So obviously you saw the first round where he almost ended that fight. And then Marquez slowly start walking him down, and the first fight ended in a draw. Controversial. Okay, absolutely. So the second fight, they go at it again. Pacquiao gets a late knockdown, ends up winning, controversially. Yeah. So they have a third fight. Most people thought Marquez won that fight, but Pacquiao got the decision. Yes. So now they have to have a fourth fight, but they both know going into that fourth fight, because they're so close, they fought 36 rounds. They had to take more chances, and they both took more chances, and they both got knocked down. But that eventually led to Pacquiao get knocked out, because they wanted a definitive answer. They didn't want any more controversy. They fought 36 rounds. They've gone back and forth. So they had the mindset of both of them, if you listen to their press conference leading up to that fourth fight, that they were going to take bigger risk against one another, and bigger risk, bigger reward, but also the bigger fall you may have. And that's what happened in that fight.
But as your opinion as a coach for these guys, right? As BJ said, yeah, you want to win, especially if the longer you've been a fighter, you want to try and in the fight early, right? Quickly, big flashy win, more press, things like that, and you're not gassed out. But to have the experience of learning, it's that kind of a balance between gaining some knowledge from the fight, but without getting gassed out. I mean, your fighters too.
Right. As a fighter, you kind of know yourself. So those guys have to sit in that locker room, whether they're going into a cage in a ring, that hour and a half before the fight, and contemplate all that in their head of what is just, that their humanity as they walk down that aisle to that cage or that ring. And yeah, you want them to learn who they are as a fighter. It teaches you something about who you are as a person. But at the same time, as a coach, we ain't getting paid by the minutes. We get paid to go in there and execute. Yeah. So if this ends in 9 seconds or it ends in 36 minutes or 25 minutes, all right. But I would take the 9 seconds. I had a fighter, Gray Maynard, and he won a fight in 9 seconds, and he was so mad. He was mad that he won in 9 seconds because he's like, Coach, I trained for 12 weeks. And I was like, bro, you won. He trained for 12 weeks and lost in 9 seconds. I had to go in the back and hit mitts with him because he felt he didn't get enough out of the fight. I'm like, why am I being punished?
I guess it's a good problem to have, right? BJ, so let me ask you this. Transitioning from legendary fighter back to regular, normal routines. How was that transition for you? Was it something that you found particularly challenging? And if so, what part of the transition did you find the most challenging?
It really was hard walking away from your identity, especially one like that, a fighter. I mean, that's from Cinderella man can be from rags to riches. The only sport a pauper can be treated like a king, such a beautiful thing. But it was hard to walk away from it, from your identity. But I'm glad I got into the politics and stuff because it kind of, kept my mind off fighting different kind of fight, I guess. But yeah, I would say you're walking away from whatever it is. Who cares? Whatever you see 4 horses, just jump on one. If you don't like it, jump on another one. But you just keep walking and just keep kind of thinking about it. Is better. Now I really don't even think about the fighting or miss it in that sense. I never really got into the coaching as much, but if I was a coach, I would, seeing the guys, I would always make sure that you never pop like, hey, you guys are gonna spar today. I would always go, okay, hey, I would go, okay, come. I would go talk to one of the other coaches and say, hey, coach, can my boy get a couple rounds with yours tomorrow? And once he says yeah, and then I'll go, hey, kick his ass. I'll see you tomorrow. Because that's the fight, right? That's what fighting is. Mm-hmm. That's the fight. Sitting there, just something breaks out someplace or some kind of tussle on the street or anything. That's the physical. But when you sit there and you start to internalize it, and that's what fighting is. That's when the fight starts.
What would your advice be to other professional athletes that are struggling with post-retirement? What would you tell them as an encouragement thing, or something that you've learned to be able to help them with their post-retirement struggles?
What you do every day is what you become, but you're naturally going to just be doing what you like to do, and don't have too much regrets. Just go. You can always switch and jump on another horse, but don't sit there and think. I see it all the time that, people like, especially fighting of all sports, they just can't leave it. They'll be like, okay, I'm retiring, man. So glad to retire. I'm like, man, that was awesome. You're one of the greatest. 1 week later, he's trying to message me, hey man, can you do a fight with me? Because it's hard to walk away from your identity, right? And I see that, and it hurts me being a fighter myself, because what do they got to go on to? But you know what? Fighters, the same principles that lead to success in a fight will lead to success in all areas of life. And that's when fully understood, not when partially understood, not when kind of understood. No, when fully understood, the same principles that lead to success in a fight will lead to success in all areas of life. And it really is. And a champion, he wants 2 things. He does 2 things. A champion adjusts, and a champion always wants one more round. Always wants one more round. No matter what. No, go one more round, coach. That's when you're the champ. Because most guys want to get the hell out of there. Right, Coach?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, BJ, thank you very much for being on the show today. It's a pleasure having you. For our viewers that want to follow you or find out more about you, why don't you let them know where they can do that on social media or anything else that you're doing?
Yeah, bjpenn.com always was MMA news for a while, and then just BJ Penn Instagram. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Coach. Learned some things listening to you, and thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast, boss.
All right, Ron, thank you again for being on as always. And where can our listeners and viewers go to find more information with you?
My Instagram is Ron Frazier 22. I'm there, or PhD Athletics, another Instagram page, or my TikTok, which is also PhD Athletics.
Well, as always, thank you very much, Ron, for being on with us today. If you like what you saw here today, make sure you give us a like and subscribe and follow along for more and get notifications on our next podcast. Have a great day.